So Jay commences to kick in this door. We're yelling police, like we're supposed to and everything. And the door flies open, always comes back shut, always happens. Well, I bend down. You know how you crouch down to draw your weapon? You kind of crouch a little bit. 3 shots came through the door right over my head. 3 gunshots. So I started going towards him. My butt's in the breeze here, right? I don't have any cover, so I got to take out the threat. Muzzle flashes kept coming. Instantaneously, you realize that, hey, this is the real thing. In my mind's eye, all I can see is fog and muzzle blasts. Why is he still shooting? Like, man, I'm going to get hit. My leg, it was like somebody was hiding around the corner and hit me with a sledgehammer in my leg. The craziest rage I've ever felt in my life came to me. And I said, remember your training.
You're listening to the ATO Bridging the Divide podcast, brought to you by the Assist the Officer Foundation.
Since 1999, the ATO has given assistance to the first responder community, and now we want to give them a platform to hear their incredible stories.
We also want to hear the stories of the many people that support us.
Our community is small, but it is strong.
We have differences. We don't always agree, and we all make mistakes.
But together we can grow, we can heal.
And we can learn from those mistakes.
And together we can bridge the divide.
Welcome back, ATO friends. I'm Joe King. Today I'm sitting with a special guest co-host, narcotic detective Todd Conway. Todd, say hello.
Hey, everyone.
Also back today to dish out more punishment to the listeners is Sergeant Kent Wolverton.
Happy to be here.
And we have a very special guest co-host, former DPD. She's going to be on a later episode, Gretchen Rocha.
Hello, everyone.
You'll hear her voice later on in her own episode, and I promise it's quite the story. Today we're going to discuss Charlie Brown effect. Don't laugh. There's a purpose. In October of 1950, Charles Schulz brought the world the Peanuts comic strip. One of the main characters is named Charlie Brown. And for the first time, in November of 1952, a character named Lucy would hold a football for Charlie to kick off. Charlie would concentrate, take aim, and run to kick the football. And right at the last minute, Lucy would yank the ball away. Charlie would whiff it where the ball once was and fall flat on his back. Every year at Thanksgiving, Charlie would put his trust in Lucy to finally hold the ball steady, and Charlie would get to kick the ball, launching it from the ground. But Charlie never kicked the ball, as Lucy would, on cue, pull the ball away. Sometimes life can be like this. Hope's up, you concentrate and focus, and at the last minute, you can be on your back, looking up like Charlie. Today's guest will describe this feeling of falling flat on your back in professional and personal life, but also learning from it and growing from each experience. He's a former MP in the Marines, Bexar County Sheriff, undercover Dallas PD narc. He now has his hand in DPD administration, as well as a command in DPD's fugitive unit and gang unit. He's been married since 1986 to Yvonne, 3 grown children, and 7 grandkids. It's ATO's honor to welcome to the stage Dallas PD Major Mark Harris. Mark, thank you for coming on.
Thanks for having me. Now the Bridging the Divide has reached the bottom of the barrel.
Yeah, we went we're under the bridge now, and we're scraping. If anybody's got any suggestions for us, please help us. We need some
Yeah.
we need some
Need
better
some
we need some guests, and Yeah, we're scraping the barrel with a major now. Mark, seriously, thanks for coming on.
I appreciate you.
Can I
having
call
me,
you
son.
Mark, or do I have to?
Yeah.
You made me salute when I walked in.
Yeah.
Okay.
My name's Mark.
Okay.
Call me Mark.
All right. Major Mark. Okay. Got it. All right. We're going to just dive into this. I'm going to start off with some easy ones for you. You know how this goes. And the listeners, that they know how it goes as well. So where'd you grow up?
I was born in Terre Haute, Indiana, 1966. So do the math.
Did you say terrible Indiana?
That should have been the name of it, Terre Haute. No, I love Terre Haute, but it was a stinky city. It's Commercial Solvents was the big plant there where they put the coating on the telephone poles. So every time we went to the mall, which we only had one, we used to try to hold our breath the entire time we drove by. That it never worked.
Is that scuba diver training?
Yeah,
living there.
Yeah. I can dive down to like 300 feet. And then when I was about 4, my parents were divorced when I was really young. So when I was about 14, my mom remarried, moved to Paris, Illinois, which is 30 miles from just across the river from Terre Haute, and stayed there about a year. Farm life wasn't really for me, so I moved to St. Louis, Missouri, with my dad. My dad was living there with his with my stepmother, and that's where I finished high school. Basically, was in St. Louis.
When did you meet Yvonne? High school sweetheart?
No, we met when I was at MP school.
Okay.
So I went to high school in St. Louis. This is one of those where I Charlie Brown myself, but my dad was pretty well off, by that time, and so I had basically a full ride to University of Missouri at St. Louis. Not academic scholarship. My dad was going to pay for it, and an apartment, a car. I didn't pay for any insurance, anything like that. And after one semester, I quit.
You're like Billy Madison, that movie.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. But I didn't have to go all the way back through kindergarten though. After one semester and kind of a breakup with everything's over a girl, right? But I went and joined the Marine Corps, and
wow.
And so then after when I got out of boot camp in May of '86, I got sent to Lackland Air Force Base in San Antonio for MP school, and that's where I met Yvonne. And
what was that like, being an MP? And why did you gravitate towards the law enforcement?
It's a couple of things during my life. When we were living in Terre Haute, one night somebody, my mom, single mother, and with 3 young kids at home, somebody raised up her bedroom window one night and started climbing in her bedroom. She got us up and got us out of the house and called 0. There wasn't any 911.
Yeah.
And it's a good thing that our party line, we had party lines, so you shared a phone with somebody, right? So you pick up your phone to call somebody, and people 4 houses down and be on the phone. You couldn't call.
I think we call that bootleg down south. Yeah.
Yeah.
Bootleg.
Still got that, I think, in South Dallas.
Yeah. So anyway, the police came and they just really impressed me. They looked like one Adam 12. They had the same uniforms, no patches, just a badge, that kind of thing. So that impressed me. And then later on in high school, I worked at a movie theater, and the projectionist went on strike one time. So we had to have police protection there because the scrubs came in to show the movies, and getting to talking to those guys really, really got me interested in being a police officer. So when I decided I was not wanting to go to college, I tried to join the St. Louis County Police Department, and they said, "Yeah, go away, kid." And so I thought, well, military police,
Did you ever look at pursuing a career as a Marine, just staying there?
No, that really wasn't ever in my mind. I just wanted to get to where I was old enough to be a cop, and I think you had to be 19 to be a cop in the Marines. You couldn't be a 17-year-old MP, and so I went to boot camp in February of '86. I had actually there wasn't any MP spots open when I was enlisting, so it was my second choice. My first choice, which I was slated to do, was jet mechanics.
That might have been all right. With that specialty.
Yeah, it might have been. It might have worked out pretty good, but so the jet mechanics, I enlisted in December of '85, and I wasn't going to go to boot camp until November of '86, and then recruiters called me and said, if you want an MP spot, you're leaving in February. So I took it, and it's a good thing I did. I mean, when we get along in this, everything works out for a reason,
Yeah.
It really does. So, got sent to Lackland and met Yvonne at the Skylark Enlisted Club about a month after I got there.
Was it like that scene on Top Gun when they were in that bar in the beginning?
Oh yeah, I think they made the movie because of me. I think that's
probably.
what it was.
You had the mirror sunglasses on in the club.
The resemblance is striking.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was actually one of the first movies we ever went to see together. I think.
86.
That and Karate Kid.
Oh God, yeah, that was a good date. 80s movie.
Yeah.
How did your father take this? You going into the military?
He threw a fit. So they had this program at the time called, it was a contract corporal program, but you had to enlist for 6 years, and you got guaranteed, I'm using air quotes, guaranteed to be promoted to corporal in 18 months.
No.
So that was, we were the brunt of everybody's jokes when we were contract corporals. I did not make corporal in 18 months because of a series of unfortunate events. But I got in trouble once, and so they suspended it for 6 months. And then I've always had, ever since I was a kid, I've had a weight problem. And I know I don't look like it now, but so I had a surgery. I had to have a surgery just early on when I had first gotten to Camp Pendleton. I went to Camp Pendleton. I probably ought to back up. I met my wife, and I met Yvonne in June of '86. We were married in October, 11 days before my 20th birthday.
Wow.
And then so we packed up our car. We packed up my car full of her stuff and drove to California with no plan. I had $1,000 that my dad gave me for a wedding present. And I was thinking about it last night. Like, we just drove around and found an apartment complex and walked in and signed a lease.
Just the Beverly Hillbillies, huh?
Oh, yeah. I mean, it was crazy. I mean, I don't even know how we did things anymore. I can't remember. It's been so long. So we did that. Had no furniture. My best friend from high school was my best man. Rode to California with us, and when I had to go back to work the next day after we got back, or that day, I can't remember. And so I got home from work, and when I got home from work, they're sitting there in an empty apartment. They've been bored to death, and we jumped in the car and went and rented an entire apartment full of furniture. So it was
sounds like a great honeymoon. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, awesome.
Furniture
awesome.
Shopping.
Yeah.
Very free-spirited approach.
But that was one of the other things is like, okay, I'm going to be a cop, right? I'm going to be an MP. I get it out of MP school, and they sent me to 1st FSSG, Camp Pendleton, California, which is not driving around in patrol cars and standing gates. It's sitting in fighting holes, protecting the perimeter of a headquarters type of area in a war zone. That's what the field MPs do. And I got there and I was like, oh man,
damn. Yeah, careful what you wish for when being MP.
Yeah, no, it wasn't.
I want you to explain the Charlie Brown effect. What does that mean to you?
Yeah, so Charlie Brown, he was just this poor soul. He just he got a rock every time he went trick or treating. Every year he gets rocks and he never got any candy. Charlie Brown tried to kick that football every year, fell flat on his back every year. It's just like, for me, it resonates because of, what I was just saying. I'm all excited. I get out of MP school. I got promoted to Lance Corporal before I left MP school. and they hand me my orders, and they're like, oh no, you're going to the field MPs, and there's that football, right out from underneath you, and I'm like, what's a field MP? And spent a lot of time, spent a lot of nights in holes, and the last big operation we did before I left the Marine Corps was in 29 Palms, California. If anybody's ever been there, you can spend a day, a week there 1 month. It's awful, or however you say that. 120 degrees during the day, about 70 at night. So you're freezing cold, and then hot. It's awful.
So your experience as an MP, it wasn't too well.
Not until in '88, I put in a form. I told Yvonne, I said, I got to get out of this unit. So I put in a form, a request to transfer, and I put Marine Corps Base, Camp Pendleton, which is what you think MPs do. I put in for El Toro, California, an air station, and then I put in for another one. I can't remember. And I told her, what's going to happen is they're going to send me to Japan. So just get ready because we're going to Japan. But I actually got the Marine Corps Base Camp Pendleton spot. By then I'd been promoted to corporal, and we actually got a base housing. So things started looking up. We were going pretty good.
You put in your bio that you struggled with the PT test initially. What did you do to fight through that?
Well, so in boot camp, you didn't really have a choice. I mean, when I graduated boot camp, I ran the 3-mile required run in 20 minutes and 10 seconds or something. But I was always consistently around 24, 25 minutes. I just did it. I mean, I was in good shape then. But I've always struggled with PT tests, as you're gonna find out in this during this time. It's mostly mental.
We didn't make you do one prior to coming in here, though. Just
Maybe
let the
do
listener
the stairs
know.
like 8 times.
Yeah. PT
tests. So I went to Marine Corps Base Camp Pendleton, and we were on 12-hour shifts, and we would do half a night at standing gates and half the night on patrol. So that was pretty good. I liked it. It was long hours, but every other weekend we got a 3-day weekend, and I was just living life, But as we all know, driving around in a squad car, eating at Burger King, the only thing that's open, there's a Burger King on base. I think that was the only restaurant they had at the time. Gained a little weight, and I had been on weight control. They have a weight control program in the Marine Corps, and
diet private.
That was boot camp.
Okay.
Yeah, that's eating toothpaste because you're so hungry.
Yeah.
Right,
shout out John Valdez. He was a diet private.
Yeah.
And thank you for your service, John.
Diet private. So when you go to the chow hall in boot camp and you're a diet private, first of all, they spray paint 2 big red stripes on all of your PT shirts.
Like a scarlet letter.
It's like in Little League football in Indiana, if you were over 120 pounds, you couldn't carry the ball. So if I intercepted a pass, I had to just fall down. And the way that the referees knew that is there was a big white stripe on your helmet to indicate that you were a fat body.
I had a son that was an X-Man. Yeah, they had the X on the back of the helmet. And
yeah.
Yo, really?
He had to run laps in the parking lot before weigh-ins to get underneath the
take the
in
X
5th
off.
grade. Yeah, it was remarkable. Now he's fantastic. He's a lean, mean fighting machine.
Yeah.
But back when he was little, man, whoo.
Yeah, so the diet private, you get a tray full of food and stand there, and the drill instructor would come up and say, don't eat that, and don't eat that. Go. And you had to report back with the food still.
Oh, they left it on your plate to look at?
Or that, or they gave it to the skinny guys that had double rat.
That's what John said. John
ration.
said they give it to the scrawny.
Yeah, double rat privates. Yeah. So
John said he would lay in his bed at night in his bunk. He couldn't sleep. He was so hungry.
Yeah. I'm not kidding about eating toothpaste. I got hungry one time and just got a big old finger full of toothpaste and ate it because I was hungry.
I love you, John.
Yeah. Semper Fi, John. So, yeah, I'd been on
Always hungry.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's eating right now as we're recording this. I guarantee you. He's over there.
Semper feed.
Yeah,
And what's the Latin for hungry? Semper whatever. But I had that surgery which caused me to gain weight before I went to the MP battalion, and so they gave me 6 months to lose X number of pounds, and I did it in 4. Worked out all the time. I think when I came out of the desert, 29 Palms in '88, I weighed 162 pounds or something. I mean, I was in really, really good shape, and then gained some going to MP battalion. So then that was my next sort of Charlie Brown moment.
Is that August of '89?
That was the culmination of it, but
Okay.
It started about probably, I would think, March or April of that year. They selected me to go to NCO school, which is something that you have to do to be a sergeant in the Marine Corps. You got to, unless you get meritoriously promoted, and I wasn't like a stellar Marine, or anything. But so they send me to this NCO school, and I was excited about it. First thing they do is weigh in and a PT test. So weigh in comes, I think I was 8 pounds. My max weight I could be in the Marine Corps was 186 for my height. And I was, about 194, something like that. So I got you're overweight. And then we go to do the PT test. And I never had a really problem with sit-ups. I could do the max number of sit-ups in 2 minutes. Pull-ups I never did. I did the max a couple of times, which was 20. But then you had to do a 3-mile run in 28 minutes or less. Never had a problem with it. I wasn't really ever the fastest one, but I was always around 24, 25 minutes consistently. When I crossed the finish line on this run, and they said 30 minutes, 30 seconds, you failed. And
30 minutes.
yeah, 30 minutes and 30 seconds. I'll never forget the time. So I started to protest respectfully. It was a staff sergeant or something. I said, I don't think that was 3 miles. Yeah, it was. You failed. You're going back to your unit. Get out of here. Mm-hmm. So, oh boy, what am I going to do now? So, so they sent me back to MP battalion, and I'm standing tall in front of the man, the first sergeant of the company, or the battalion first sergeant, I think. And first sergeant and master sergeant are the same rank. Mm-hmm. First sergeants are kind of admin people. Like when you become a first sergeant, you can get sent to any unit, anywhere. Master sergeants stay in their MOS. So this guy's a first sergeant, but he was a grunt by trade, Vietnam veteran. And he's commissioned to chewing my butt. And I told him, I don't think it was 3 miles. And he said, well, how far do you think it was? I said, well, 4. And so he's, in his head, he starts yelling at me, telling me, well, I'm old, and, I don't know how old he was. He looked like shoe leather, but he was probably like 40.
Yeah.
That's really old now.
Yeah. Yeah. He's like, I'm however old, and I can run 24-minute 3 miles, so you ought to be able to do 30 minutes in 28 minutes, or 3 miles in 28 minutes. So I should have kept my mouth shut, but I was like, well, with all due respect, you can't run 4 miles in 28 minutes either, because that doesn't add up. So then I lost about 4 more pounds in my butt, and he said, you're overweight, you're on weight control, you got 3 months to lose 8 pounds, whatever. The kicker on all that is during that 3 months when I was on that weight control for failing a PT test, I got an award from the battalion commander for getting a high score on the PT test, because we had our battalion PT test during that period of time, but I never could lose the weight, so they processed me for discharge. And during my son Jack, I have my oldest boy's my stepson, so he was 2 years old when we got married. And then we had Jack in August of '87, and then Yvonne was pregnant with Amanda when all this was going on. So they put me in dispatch, told me I was processing for discharge, and I still had 2.5 years left on my enlistment, and in August of '89 is when I got discharged. 26th of August, Amanda was born on the 8th of September. No health insurance. Thank God for my parents. Thank God for my dad. He continued Yvonne's health insurance from her job she had. She had a job at Airwalk Shoes when they were first starting out. It was pretty cool.
No, I remember those.
A lot of free shoes. But he continued her health insurance. So when I saw the writing on the wall, I started mailing in applications, we didn't really have a place to go with my parents. My mom was living in Illinois, and my dad was living here in Dallas. He was the CEO of Pizza Inn at the time. So he's living off of Lovers and Tollway in a high-rise apartment. He really doesn't have room for 3 kids, and So we're going to San Antonio. We're moving in with her mom and her mom and dad, and so mailed in. I got scheduled for San Antonio police testing, and I got scheduled for Bexar County Sheriff's Office testing. So, I went and got me a job at the Benson Mazda selling cars. I think I sold 1 car in 2 months, and they tell me,
I can't see you as a car salesman.
I'm like, you want to buy it or not? They would say,
Yeah.
That was when the Miata came out.
Oh,
they were very hard to sell.
Yeah.
They were very easy to sell, but they were very hard to get your hands on one to sell it. So I was collecting unemployment, and I was working at a bar as a bartender while I was processing for the sheriff's department. I took their test first, and I went and took the San Antonio PD written test, which was, at the time you had to spend the night to get an application. You had to stand in line literally all night at the East Side substation to get an application. So there's 5,000 people taking a test for maybe 50 spots. I don't know. And I failed the written test. There's it, football again.
Yeah.
I've never failed a written test. That's the only that I can remember. I don't think I've ever failed a test except that one. And so that day I had to work at the bar. So I'm all mad. Go to work, and I'm, these people in there, it's dollar shots and dollar beers. I don't know anything about bartending.
Classy joint. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, just awesome. Breaking up fights, that kind of thing, and acting like, hey, I'm a Marine, right? Trying to act tough so people wouldn't fight in front of me.
I'm an MP.
Yeah. Yeah. You better stop it.
Yeah.
But I got the phone call from the sheriff's department at the bar that I was hired. They said be here whatever day it was. I had like 3 days.
Did you just take your apron off and leave it on the bar and walk out?
There was probably 10 people in there. I threw 10 shot glasses on the bar, poured them all full. The owner came in and gave me a weird look, and I said, hey, I quit.
F you, F you,
Yeah,
F
yeah.
you. You're cool.
You're cool.
And F you.
Yeah.
I'm out.
Yeah. Yeah.
Take this job.
Yep. That's
funny.
basically what it was. And so then I got to the sheriff's academy and find out that it's a jailer academy. That was in December the 8th of 1989 is when I started there. And I was like, what do you mean it's a jailer academy? And they were like, yeah, you just got hired to be a jailer, and the sheriff's department at the time didn't have an accredited peace officer academy. So I was like, well, what do you got to,
Like a bait and switch on you.
Yeah.
Yeah, the fine print seems to be a common occurrence with you.
Yeah,
here.
by the way.
They saw a puppy dog when they you walking in.
Yeah. But it was pretty cool. We had there were 3 or 4 Marines in my class, in my academy class. One of them was a sergeant major. You know, like he had 30 years in the Marine Corps, and he had just gotten out. Henry Wesley, so he was obviously our class president right off the bat. But it was 9 weeks and some PT, not very hard. It wasn't anything compared to the Marine Corps. So, and then. So then you do the 9-week academy, and then you have, I think, 2 weeks of on-the-job training. They call it OJT. It's like FTO training. You go up in the living unit and learn how to run the door locks and the panels. And it's, if you can imagine a big square room with a giant glass diagonally down the middle, real thick, 42 cells on each side. And at the time, the jail was so overcrowded, I think, some of the units had 3 people to a cell. So I don't know, do the math on that one. It's 200 people you had to, inmates, you know, that you had to look out for all day. And, but I had a good time. I worked in the jail for 3.5 years, promoted to corporal, took a test, promoted, and ended up, I worked a lot of good units. I worked the recreation, we were under a consent decree at the time. So every inmate had to have an hour and a half of sunlight 3 times a week or something. So I was the rec officer.
A lot of tan inmates.
Yeah, and I was a covered thing. But so I had to do the admin seg, you know, schedule their recreation and all that. You go to the living unit. They're talking about, you got Texas Syndicate, Crips, Bloods, whatever you can think of, not the Mexican Mafia. They were housed up on the 6th floor.
Why was that?
What?
Why did they house them up?
The Texas Syndicate and the Mexican Mafia, they'll kill each other on sight. I mean, there were times when I would have the TS guys out on rec, and the Mexican Mafia were right above them. And they would just
plotting their death.
They would just talk trash to each other the whole time. I mean, y'all just play handball and be quiet. You know, come on,
enjoy the sunlight.
I mean,
come on.
Yeah, we had this kid in that unit. He was a Crip gang member, and he had to go by himself because there were no more Crips. And I went to pick him up for rec one day, leg irons and handcuffs, and he's talking trash the whole time to these TS guys, right? And so I take him for his little hour and a half. I don't know, you know, I just send him outside and
go play.
Come tell me when you're done, you know. And coming back, he's in leg irons and handcuffs behind his back, and it's my job to protect him. And Master Control opened the door on accident to the living unit.
No.
So I had to step in front of him, and, you know, the Texas Syndicate guys were going after him. I think I took a couple of punches, and you know, I was like, I'm pushing the button. Who the hell opened the door? After it was all done, and they never did tell me. They were like, "Sorry about that."
Yeah,
you know?
sorry you almost died, but my bad.
The Texas Syndicate guys were very respectful, though. They apologized up and down. They were like, "Hey, you know, it's just business. We didn't mean it. We didn't mean that in a bad way." You know.
Well, how could that?
We were
not
just
be
trying to
taken
kill
any
him
other-
on accident. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No, they didn't mean it in a bad way. How could that be taken in a good way?
Completely sorry for punching you in the
Yeah.
face.
Yeah.
Good way.
Yeah.
Good way.
Yeah, so getting out of the jail into patrol was the goal, everybody's goal, which is counterintuitive to Dallas PD, where everybody wants to get out of patrol, right? So the sheriff that we had when I first started there would just randomly walk around the jail and ask people if they wanted, are you a peace officer? Do you want to go to patrol? Okay, report tomorrow. There was no rhyme or reason to it.
Like a lottery. It's basically it's like a patrol lottery.
One time they were rumor, everybody started calling around saying the sheriff's walking around booking, asking people to go to patrol. And we were all banging on the door. The master control wouldn't let us out of ours. We were like, let me out of here. But we got a new sheriff in, I don't know what year it was, but 90, I think he started in 93, but they did an entire civil service hiring process to go to patrol. So I applied. I had to interview, everything you can imagine that you have to do here. I had to do again, and I got picked. Had to give up my stripes and my pay. By the way, when I started there, it was $16,800 a year. I thought that was pretty righteous money.
Damn.
No. I told Yvonne one time, we were talking about it last night, my goal was to get us to $30,000 a year.
Yeah.
That'll buy a lot of Airwalks and Pizza Inn.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I got free pizza.
And your dad just had that in his pocket as walking around money.
Yeah, he had that in his shoe.
Yeah.
But so I got picked and went to patrol. We did some sort of 6-week orientation school, and I made it to patrol finally. I mean, finally, that's been my goal. Now I was 25 or something, 26.
What was that feeling like?
It was awesome. When I first started FTO training, it was crazy and it was awesome at the same time. I mean, it was because we didn't have substations at the time, so we would go to detail at the jail, at the sheriff's office headquarters, and then pretty much as soon as you loaded your car and checked in service, you were running code 3 somewhere because there were a lot of unincorporated areas at the time. I don't know if you all know San Antonio, but a lot of almost everything outside of Loop 410 was county. And then they would annex every year. They would annex like half a neighborhood, something like that, until they got all the way. They got to the point where they didn't have enough fire stations, so they quit annexing stuff. So sheriff's department's pretty big now, but we had about 150 deputies that were in patrol.
I love the San Antonio area. I like that a lot.
It was fun. It was so fun working there. I mean, it was crazy and it was fun. But FTO training was supposed to be, I can't even remember how long it was supposed to be. I think 15 weeks long or something like that. But about 12 weeks into that, the patrol chief said, "You're done. We're too shorthanded. All of y'all, you're off training today." So that was cool. I still remember the first day I got in a squad car by myself. We all remember that. I mean, it was amazing. But so between I-10 and Bandera Road was my district. Every unincorporated area outside that. That was initially my district, and by then we were in substations, which were volunteer fire departments that were abandoned. They were, so we were working out of those. It was a great time.
Was there a chief on the department now that worked out there with you in that area?
There is, yeah. Chief Ramirez was on. We did not know each other, but Ruben Ramirez, yeah, he was on the sheriff's department, and I remember hearing rumors that 2 or 3 guys had gotten hired at DPD. How lucky they were, because you had to have 45 hours of college, and none of us did. We didn't have.
Speaking of, when did you decide? How did DPD get in your path? I mean, how did you get up here?
Well, Larry Nichols.
Shout out Larry.
Yeah. We were actually in the same series in boot camp, and we ended up I think we were roommates in MP school. And then, so we just kept in touch, and I had gotten out because of the weight control thing, and he stayed in. He was smart. He enlisted for 4 years. He stayed in until 90, then moved here to Dallas, and we would talk every once in a while. He'd tell me stories about his antics at Southeast Patrol, and I came up and rode with him a couple times. He kept on hounding me. So we got to talking about, because down there, I got promoted to detective in '98. So that was 5 years in patrol, and somebody had to die or get fired or retire for you to get promoted. Funny story about getting promoted to detective. I scored number 3 on the test, and I didn't get promoted initially. So that's how many, there was.
Yeah, you be number 1, you're not getting it.
Yeah, you just had to wait. Well, a lieutenant got fired, which meant there was a running list. So somebody got promoted to lieutenant, somebody to sergeant. I got promoted to detective. Well, I go through my little training as a detective down there, and I got assigned to night's detective, like, for the whole county. So, like 4 p.m. to 2 a.m. or whatever it was, and come to work one night, and there's a letter in my box telling me you're demoted back to deputy. I'm like, well, I guess that guy got his job back, Another one of those.
Charlie Brown, yeah.
Yeah. But our association, we had a fairly strong association they got with the sheriff, and said, look, demotion's a little too, this is going in these people's records, So they changed it to reassignment or something or another. And, but I'd ended up in traffic. They put me back in traffic, and it only lasted like 3 months, and they re-promoted me. So not a big deal.
Did that experience, did that make you, the decision to go to Dallas, easier?
It did, that and the money.
Yeah.
I think our starting pay here was 28 something and change in 2000, and I was not making that much with 10 years on and being basically a corporal detective. So Yvonne and I discussed it for a long time. I actually applied here in '98. After I went back to school during that time, we were on these cool 12-hour shifts where we had 4 days a week off, and so I went back to school. And I got hounded about it. My buddy, what do you want to go get a degree for? Why are you going to an advanced peace officer school? You
Think you're smarter than us?
Yeah, you think you're some kind of genius,
College boy.
Yeah. So, but no, I mean, I'm driven. I can't not take a test, or I've skipped one promotion test in my whole career.
Now, you've done really well on promotion tests, if I remember correctly. You're usually at the top of the list.
Well, yeah, I was on the top of our senior corporal list here, number 19, I think I was.
But there's like 500 people taking that test, so that's in the top 10% for sure.
Right. Well, yeah. The first time I took the sergeant's test, though, wasn't real good.
Yeah, you skipped one there, huh?
Yeah, I didn't do very well on that test. But then when we promoted together as sergeants, I think I was number 4 before the assessment center, if I'm not mistaken. I don't know. Then I was 34 after they heard me talk and all that.
You showed them.
Well, when you decided to get to Dallas, Larry kind of dragged you here, and then the pay, right? When you decided to get here, you went through the academy, and I saw in your bio you had a critical incident at Northeast.
In Northeast, yeah.
What happened on that?
I had a really good crash in San Antonio.
Oh yeah, tell us.
During a chase. I guess my almost died moments. Yeah, I wanted to tell this story because it's kind of funny. So there was at night. I was working 8 p.m. to 8 a.m. and when we went to detail, there was probably 5 of us. Yeah, on a good night. So everybody knows Rudy's Barbecue, right? Well,
yeah.
Rudy's Barbecue. There used to only be one, and it was on my beat. It was on my district. So the guys, we all got together, and they said, "Hey, man, can you go pick up some Rudy's, for dinner, and we'll all meet up somewhere and eat." And I'm like, "Yeah." And I had a guy from the jail, a deputy from the jail, riding with me. You could go put yourself through San Antonio College, which is what I did, the peace officer school, and then you got commissioned so you could come ride out or work extra jobs or whatever. And so I had this guy with me. Well, we go pick up this food for everybody, and we're coming back, and coming down 1604, and the dispatcher comes on the radio and says that Bandera County Sheriff's Office is in Chase, and they're coming towards San Antonio. So I'm like, what a coincidence. I'm right here at Bandera Road in 1604. So I was like, we're going to this, dude. And so I went out to the county line to wait for them. And here they come. It was Medina County and Bexar County. They were in Chase with the stolen car. And I got in line, and I was, following them. Basically, we were all in Chase. Well, when we got to 1604 and Bandera Road, they all just slammed on their brakes and turned back around.
Zone 4 is clear. It's yours.
Yeah. Yeah. So I've got a tape of it. It's pretty cool. So, I got on the radio, and I'm like, it was just like here, we're okay. I'm the number one car. So the lieutenant gets on and, asked me, well, what offenses do we have, and I'm making stuff up. I was like, well, all we're doing is really driving fast. But driving recklessly, this and that. So he said, we'll take it. And I'm like, all right, cool. Well, we get down to, we passed Leon Valley PD sitting in the median, waving at me, and San Antonio's not getting in it. And I think it's past the statute of limitations on this, but my buddy from Helotes PD stayed with me for a long time at the risk of his behind.
That's a long ways from where you started.
Yeah, it's a long way. It's a long way. He's now the chief down there. So hi, Rob. Sorry, I snitched you off after all these years. I don't know if he'll hear this or not, but
he's gonna get demoted a month after this comes out.
Yeah, the mayor's gonna fire him.
Yeah.
You chased somebody 30 years ago. This was 94. Well, this kid he pulled into he didn't pull in, but he went into the Handy Andy parking lot, and I was driving a 93 Crown Vic, and they have a very small master cylinder. So when you're using the brakes and the steering and all that, they tend to lock up, and that's what happened to my vehicle. So the steering locked up on me. I flew 15 feet into a tree, airbag deployment, whole 9 yards. And I wasn't hurt. They thought I had a broken arm, but it didn't end up being broken. And so I'm sitting in the back of the ambulance with one of those air splints on my arm, smoking a cigarette. And they were like, one of the deputies walked up and they said, hey, are you okay? And I said, yeah. And they said, hey, did you get that food?
And
I'm like, yes. Can I get your keys, man?
they started eating the Rudies at the scene.
They probably were.
Yeah.
I don't know. They carted me off to the hospital, but
Got to climb the tree to get at the car.
Yeah.
The other thing they did was, I don't know if I had an MDT in that car or not, but if I did, there wasn't call sheets or anything. You had to pull over to the side of the road and write down your calls when they were giving you a call. They tell you to stand by to copy a call, and you pull over. And I had like 4 calls on there, and they wrote number 5, and they wrote crash, about 6-inch letters. That was your 5th call of the night.
You had to get the mark.
Yeah, smart asses. But but anyway, yeah. So fast forward to this this deal up at Northeast. We were Jay Darst and I were riding together, and hey Jay, they're begging for somebody to take this call. I think it was a residential alarm, or somebody. The lady was calling in that somebody was breaking in her house, and I was like, I said, Jay, man, this call's BS. Let's take this and we'll go eat. We'll ride it and go to IHOP.
Famous last words.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Famous last words of a fool. So he's like, all right. So we get there. We walk around the house. We don't see anything. So I called her on the bat phone in the car, and she's going crazy. There's somebody in her house, and I asked her if she had any children. Yes, my son's here, and he's terrified. Please save me, So, it's our SOP. I called the sergeant. I said, Sergeant, we're going to kick this door in, and he said, all right, be there. I'm on the way. So go around back, and I opened the storm door, which was made out of glass, and just kind of a joke, I said, "Hey, age before beauty, Jay. You're kicking, I'm holding." So Jay commences to kick in this door. We're yelling police, like we're supposed to and everything. And the door flies open, always comes back shut, always happens. Well, I bend down. You know how you crouch down to draw your weapon? You kind of crouch a little bit. 3 shots came through the door right over my head. 3 gunshots. So broke the glass, that stuff. And so we skinned out of there. We took off running, got around the corner of the house, and we were yelling. I was yelling on the radio. Jay wasn't. He was calm. So come to realize that when then it gets real quiet. So you hear sirens and all that stuff, and then I hear this guy yelling, "Hey, officer, I'm really sorry."
Homeowner.
Oh
man.
He's the son. He was about 55. His mother was having delusions and calling 911 and saying somebody was breaking in their house. So we made him come out the house with his hands, and I started telling him to get on the ground. He's in his tighty whities, I was like, "Don't get on the ground. Don't just stand there. There's glass everywhere," And so it was crazy. I mean, it was like I remember telling Jay, "It's a good thing I was holding the door and you were kicking, because he's about a head taller than I am."
Yeah.
It would have been. I said, "You would have had a bad headache by now."
And the guy's tidy whities are probably stained after that. Yeah.
So yeah, that was a crazy deal. I actually had a flashback on that time. It was nuts.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
So coming from the county and coming up to Dallas, in that incident happening, what did you learn about yourself and also about the job and the differences working in a big city?
Working in a big city, you get a lot of experience a lot quicker. So down there, there was no such thing as 2-man call. If you called for cover, it may be 20 minutes. So we were 100 miles an hour literally everywhere we went, because we were trying to go cover each other. And here it's a luxury. Having somebody cover you is like, okay, what do mandatory 2-man call? What's I remember reading the SOP and I was thinking, what is that all about? How can I handle a family disturbance? But it's a lot. People were a lot more compliant there, but you had to talk a lot more trash when you're at somebody's house and they're trying not to comply with you. You had to think of things to say to them that would cause them to realize that you will kill them if they.
Yeah.
I'm going home.
Verbal judo.
Just so you know, yeah.
Verbal judo with a gun, though.
Yeah. So
we talked about your dad not really liking you going into the Marines, and now you've been married for several years through your service with the military and then Bexar County Sheriff's Department, and now you're moving to Dallas. How does your family support that? I mean, entirely, your wife, your dad, your mother?
Yvonne has never not supported me. She's always been supportive. She's my rock. So she told me I ain't moving to Houston, and don't even think about Austin.
That's where she drew the line.
Yeah.
Houston. Okay.
That's what she told me. That she's like, I'm not going to Houston. So, yeah, my dad was very proud of me. I think he's been gone for 20 something years now, but yeah, I think he was very proud of me in the end. So he told me one time, he came to my graduation at the Sheriff's Department. He said, "You've been wanting to do this for a long time, haven't you?" And I said, "Yeah, He said, "Good for you, And he was very supportive. I mean, he when he came to visit, he would like slip me $100. Don't tell anybody. Go buy yourself something. That kind of thing. Because I had to put my first vest on layaway at Sam's. They didn't issue vests at the sheriff's office. Bought my own gun, it was a revolver. I was issued a Glock when I went to patrol, but we had some lean times. I mean, we had back in Oceanside in the 80s. You're paying $600 a month for rent, and I think we had $12 disposable income. Like at one point, I worked at Domino's, and I was an MP. And ate pizza for dinner probably every night, and ramen, and I still can't eat ramen.
Dad wasn't a big fan of you working at Domino's with the Pizza Inn factory, huh?
Yeah, no. Yeah, he was in and out of Pizza Inn. I think he was into Godfather's at the time or something. I don't know.
Is that even around anymore, Godfather's
No,
Pizza?
I think
it's in the
there's-
gas stations.
No.
And you can get
Oh.
Pizza Inn at gas stations now, too, at the gas station.
I get queasy thinking about gas station pizza though. I can't eat it. It's like getting a burrito at a gas station.
Yeah.
Hey, sometimes you got to take a chance, man.
Yeah, you could.
Personal, like empirical data, Godfather's Pizza loves it's the best.
Yeah.
Especially drunk. Like,
Yeah,
drunk.
pizza's great when you're drunk.
Godfather's was legit. But this is the Sicilian Topper Pizza Inn. That's my Jack Harris invented that. My dad.
Nice.
Big time.
He would make us order pizza under pseudonyms. He had like 4 stores in Southern Illinois at one time, and he'd make us call and give like his fake name, because if they knew it was us, they would make it perfect, and then spend the next. And we're over there just chomping down. This pizza's great, and he was on the phone chewing the manager's ass because there was not enough cheese, too much cheese. The sauce was not right or something every time.
The TV show Undercover Boss.
I was
Jack
thinking that.
Harris.
Yeah.
He did that one
Jack
too.
Harris invented the undercover
Yes,
boss.
undercover bosses, and he worked. He had to go through that franchise school back in a long time ago in the 70s, and but yeah, what were we talking about?
Oh, we were talking about pizza and the history of pizza and the evolution of
Family
Godfathers and, and
Family
Domino's.
support. Yeah, you kind of went somewhere with your wife. She's pretty important in your life, huh?
Yeah, and my kids, and I mean that's really kind of my why, I guess. Just driven to do better and provide more things. I never was able to when they were little. There wasn't no trips to Disneyland, and we would go visit my parents. Go to my dad's. Later on in life. He lived at the Lake of the Ozarks. Had a boat and jet ski and all that. We'd take them up there. Leave San Antonio at midnight so they could all be asleep in a Mazda Protege. 3 kids and car top carrier. And then we'd go over to Terre Haute and visit Mom. And then, that was basically our vacation every year. So things that all we had to pay for was gas and food, that kind of thing, because money was tight.
Couldn't eat pizza every day.
No.
So I want to get into an incident, but I want to talk about something that happened just right before that incident. You promoted.
Yes.
And then something major on the department happened.
Yeah, it was actually promotion day. September 6th of 2006, Jeremy Borchert was shot over on Northwest at a hotel.
Yeah.
And he was hit in the femoral artery through a wall. They were outside. They were actually there covering DFD, on a medical call. So the significant part about that, when I'm move on to my incident, is that there was an ambulance there at the time. Had there not been, things would have not been worked out for Jeremy. I mean, the EMT saved his life, and so that was September 6th. Being number 19 out of 350 people on the list, I had instantaneous seniority. We had a 5-year rule because of the fake drug scandal. Can I say that?
Oh, yeah.
Beep that out.
No, it's part of Dallas history.
And I had 3.5 years in narcotics at the time, and I wasn't number one. Let's just be honest. I mean, I wasn't going to get extended because it took an act of Congress to extend that 5-year. I think that ended up going away. It didn't last very long. So I applied for a position in backgrounds in personnel during this 3-week time, and then September the 28th, was it? Anyway,
Don't get me lying. I don't remember the exact date.
yeah, that's when we went.
Okay, yeah, I want to take that from the top. I want how that day went, with the location y'all went. I showed up way after the fact. I was on the CRT, and we kind of just covered the perimeter on the shooting. It was out in the Pleasant Grove area, North Pleasant Grove. I just want to walk through that entire day and how the briefing, and then also how the incident. And Todd, you were actually there.
Yes. And
I want you to fill in some blanks of what went on in this. Can you just kind of take it from the top, Major?
I remember it being just a normal day. You know, we used to we were hitting houses a lot during that summer. I had just gotten off light duty actually in June. I had to have elbow surgery for something that happened the year before. But it was like just a normal day, and sometimes we would hit 3 houses in a day.
All the time.
You were only allowed to run 3 entries in a day. I guess you could slam a door on your 4th one or something, or drive the fan, but we were running and gunning, as they say, you know, all the time. So it just seemed like a normal day, but I don't remember if we had any before that or not.
I don't think so. I think that was the only one of the day.
Yeah, and so normal day, new guy in narcotics was the lead detective, and so, you know, he was in with the sergeant briefing, you know, and I remember sitting out there in Filthy, Ken Francis, rest in peace, was putting medical stuff into our warrant bag. And one of the things was one of those old yellow shooting up heroin tourniquet things.
Right.
And he's putting this stuff in his bag, and I'm over there messing with him. You know, I'm like, what are you doing? He said, well, think about it. Jeremy was out there. He had an ambulance on the scene when he got shot. We don't have doctors. We don't have a narc doc, right? SWAT has doctors that go with them on these things. And I was like, okay, you know, good idea, kind of eye roll, you know.
Right.
Well, that's the
famous
mindset,
last words
though.
of a fool.
That's the mindset, though. But if Jeremy, it makes me wonder if Jeremy's when he got shot 3 weeks prior, if Filthy would have if that wasn't on top of his mind.
Probably not.
Probably not.
No, and I don't know what he did in the Navy, but he was in Vietnam in the Navy. I don't know if he was a medic or not, but he sounded like a medic later on. But so we briefed the warrant just like normal. They had Sergeant Kaiser had me number 5 in the stack, which honestly kind of cheesed me off because I think I had more warrants under my belt than anybody on the team. So you know how egos go.
Right.
I should be going in the door first. So number 5, I had a new guy running behind me, and maybe that's why I was number 5, because new guy wasn't real strong operator. Can we call ourselves operators, or is that only SWAT?
I don't
Can
know.
we get a
if
ruling
it's
on
fit.
this?
Well,
Yes,
I'll allow it. I'll allow it.
You know what, Gretchen? What do you think? She'll allow it. If she allows it, you got voted in.
So we ran warrants with every other team member had an MP5 9mm. The number 2 guy would have a pistol, whatever he was issued, and we ran in 2-man teams. So you stayed with your wingman the whole time you were doing your entry. No leapfrogging. We weren't that advanced because that's really an advanced type of
2-man dynamic.
2-man dynamic
Right,
entries.
and which has kind of gone the way of the past. Now it's different techniques now.
Yeah. So we briefed the warrant. I don't think there was anything outstanding there wasn't any pre-planned.
I do remember
stunts.
the lead detective. He he got the warrant signed that day, and came to us and said, this should be quick and easy. We should hit this house and be in and out of there real fast.
Yeah.
And which everybody kind of, that's famous last words. You never want to say, this will be an easy one. We'll be done real quick.
Right.
It obviously ended up different than that.
Yeah, that's like washing your car.
Right.
It's going to rain 10 minutes later.
Exactly.
Yeah. So he briefed the warrant. We're going. I think it was 9:30 at night. I went and reviewed the case the other day. The Internal Affairs still has it. So yeah, it was like 9:30.
Yeah.
So we approached. It was a side entry house. You're going to have to fill in a lot of blanks. We'll talk about, I want to talk about auditory exclusion and whatever visual exclusion is called.
I had the same experience. Yep.
Did you?
Yes.
Yeah. So we approached the house, and my assignment was to cover off the window next to the door, which I'd say the front door, but it was on the side of the house. So we had to go down basically a brick wall down the sidewalk.
Right.
And so I was covering off the window. And it's funny because the way your brain works, because the first time you ever run a warrant, you don't see anything. You could run by an elephant and you wouldn't see it. The 100 and whatever time, I don't know how many warrants I ran, but it's like you're standing in line at 7-Eleven. I mean, It really is.
Feels very slow.
Right. You guys have done. I mean, it's you see everything that's happening. You don't pre-plan which way you're going to go into a house ever, because you have to go to the threat. But so it's just normal. I'm just holding off. I'm like, okay, let's go. Come on, let's get this done. We're get out of here. And so Filthy slammed the door, and I know this now because I saw pictures the other day, but there's a wall right inside the door, right? And there was a female either coming to the door or standing there, took off running. Always happens. So Ben, and who was running behind him?
Ben Ortiz was one, and I believe it was Mike McGee ran two.
Mike McGee, maybe. Yeah.
Yeah, because Mike McGee, I don't know if you even remember this. It seems like if something's going to go wrong, Murphy's Law, it'll happen. Mike was going to throw a stun, and at the time the technique was you always wanted to get the stun thrown deep into the house. And if you remember, Mike pulled the pin on the stun device and ended up hitting the door frame, and it fell on the ground right at the door, and it ended up basically stunning the whole entry team on entry, and we ended up going in after being stunned.
Hey, real quick, Todd, can you just tell the listener what you're talking about, the stun? Can you explain what that is and why it's used?
Yeah, it's basically a flashbang device. It's used to, if there's individuals inside, it's basically a distraction technique to draw attention away from the entry team while you're making entry into the house. So you want the stun into the house to draw attention to it while the team makes entry. And I'm sure Sergeant Wolverton could probably give you a little more detail on the stun device.
Perfect.
Got it. Thank you.
Nailed it. Perfect 10.
Yeah. So I don't know. That's probably the fourth or fifth time that I've had a stun go off at my feet.
Right.
It just happens. It's counterintuitive to close your eyes because you're trying to cover off a window, but you got to close your eyes or you're going to be blind. So Ben and I guess Mike, they go taking off after the runner to the left, and I see you guys. There was another runner, if I'm not mistaken.
There was a hallway to the right, if I remember, and I was running 4 behind Scott Shepard, and Scott broke to the right.
Yeah,
and I went with him.
Yeah, so I'm going straight. They all peeled off, so now I decide I'm going straight. And I think I took maybe 2 steps into the house, maybe 2 steps, and there was an individual across the living room in a bedroom behind the dresser, knelt down, started firing at us. So I have an MP5 on full automatic with 60 rounds. You know, I've got 2 magazines side by side. So I start going towards him. My butt's in the breeze here, right? I don't have any cover, so I got to take out the threat. There's my partner behind me, the slammer, the sergeant. You know, we got to get this guy. So I just start walking towards. From what I remember, it only lasted a matter of just seconds. But I guess my plan was to walk towards him, and I was firing, 3 or 4 round bursts. And muzzle flashes kept coming. So my first, it's these emotions last milliseconds, but my first thing was, the scenario we always did in warrant training where as soon as you breach the door, you take fire. Oh, this is the, hey, I'm getting shot at.
Right.
Done it several times. Yeah.
Yeah. It happens every quarter, but then instantaneously you realize that, hey, this is the real thing, so that's, that was next for me that I can remember. And now I don't remember anything about the house. In my mind's eye, all I can see is fog and muzzle blasts and they only fired 3 rounds at us during this whole thing. So, the next thing was, oh crap, this is real, and then the next thing was, why is he still shooting? Because I'm firing. My rounds are going right on this guy. And then the next thing was like, I guess what I could call like a controlled panic. Like, man, I'm going to get hit. This guy's not, what is going on here, and then, right simultaneously to me on his 3rd round, my leg went completely, it knocked me. It was like somebody was hiding around the corner and hit me with a sledgehammer in my leg to my left, from right to left, knocked me down. There was a couch. I know this because I saw the pictures. There was a couch inside the door up against the window.
To the left.
To the left.
Front door, yeah. Yeah,
so I landed on that couch, probably as I was still firing, because I think some of the rounds went back down. Then the craziest rage I've ever felt in my life came to me. Furious is not even a good word for it. It was just rage, and Ben told me that when he was coming back up the little hallway, all he saw was me sit back up and yell expletives. I don't want to.
I love you.
I love you, man. My mom might hear this, so I'm not going to say it. Excuse me. He said that was the coolest thing I'd ever seen in his life. He said, you sat back up and yelled and just started firing again, because now I'm pissed, and so I ran that first 30 round magazine dry, and the shot, I knew I was hit. I knew I was shot, but there wasn't any pain at the first. It was like almost like an electrical shock, like a funny bone times a million. You hit your funny bone. Mm-hmm. That's kind of what it felt like. But MP5 runs dry, and I have reloaded an MP5 a million times. Not really, but a lot, thousands of times. All you have to do is open the bolt, pop the magazine out, move it 1.5 inches over, pop the next one back in. They're hooked together with the metal clip, and then let the bolt go home. While I was trying to do that, the door to the bedroom slammed.
Closed, right?
Closed. He slammed the door closed. I guess he gave up. He figured he had a revolver against an MP5. So I was trying. Then my brain kept telling me to transition to my pistol, but the pain set in, so I was done after that. When I started feeling the pain, it was excruciating pain. Just I couldn't function. Your dexterity goes away when you.
What part of the leg?
Just below my knee on the side of my leg.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what happened when you lost your dexterity? You lost basically bodily functions, right? You just kind of So describe that, please.
Well, so we have a drill we teach it in the warrant school. If somebody in front of you goes down, you get in front of them. You have a heavy vest on. You get in front of them. You kneel down. You cover them off, and you yell, "Officer, down!" So it just in my mind, I remember saying to my partner, "Hey, I'm hit," and he said, "Yes," or "I know," or something like that. And I said, "Remember your training. Yell out." I start coaching this guy. I'm like, "Get me out of this house. Come on." Not the strongest operator in the world.
Definitely not.
And I think the decision was made at it was a recent school to let him run in the back till he got up to speed. So it is what it is. But anyway, so he starts yelling out, and I'm telling him, I think I told him, yell louder. I don't think anybody heard you. My ears weren't working. And so these guys all came and they got me out of the house. They evacuated me out. Pat Boyette came up. He was the van driver. You can tell that at one point he grabbed my leg. Somebody said, "Get his leg," and he grabbed the shot leg. And it made me scream.
We didn't know where you were hit at the time.
Yeah,
we knew you were hit. We didn't know where.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
But Pat was my normal number one. I ran behind Pat most often, and Pat had a procedure done that day and was just going to be the van driver. He was wearing, if I recall, shorts, flip-flops, a heavy vest, and a helmet that day because he was planning on driving the van and only staying in the van.
That sounds very narcotics-like.
That was definitely, in 06, that was definitely a very narcotics thing to do. So he was going to be the van driver, and he ended up coming into the house after hearing the shots, and as Mark was being extracted from the house, that's when he, I think, grabbed your leg. Mm-hmm. Filthy was dragging you out of the house, and it seems, Murphy's Law, Filthy was the slammer, and as he was dragging you out of the house, I remember he tripped over the slammer, carrying you out of the house, which caused him to fall and caused you more pain.
Yeah. And then I think my partner was helping, and he actually landed on the slammer, ended up cracking some ribs or something.
Right.
Yeah.
It was in the wrong spot. But Pat ended up using your MP5 to help clear the house after you had, and I remember Pat saying, after things settled down a little bit, he realized that the MP5 he was using, your MP5, had stovepiped. The round had stovepiped and jammed, and so he was clearing the house with an MP5 that never would have fired another round if it had needed to.
Oh boy!
So,
yeah. So then earlier I was messing with Filthy about his little makeshift first aid kit, and so they dragged me out in the front yard of this house, and Jeremy Borchard immediately came to my mind. I can feel blood coming out of my leg. I don't have an ambulance here. Is this it for me? I don't know where I'm bleeding from. Yeah.
Where were you shot at? What part of your leg?
In the lower leg, just below my my knee cap, about 2 inches below my knee. It came out the back of my leg. So,
and Todd, at what point did y'all realize where he was hit?
We didn't. I don't think we knew where he was hit until maybe several hours later.
Oh,
I mean, we realized he was hitting the leg, but not instantly. I mean, it wasn't. We didn't know instantly where he was hit. We knew it was his leg, but not exactly where in the leg.
Yeah. That's why I wanted to have Todd on. Nicknamed T-Bone, by the way.
Thank you.
I wanted his perspective because Mark is dealing with the physical pain, the mental anguish, and just the tunnel vision from his perspective. And I wanted you to come on to, to give your side, because and he was shooting at the shooter. With the guy never shot another round. Was he hit?
No, he was not hit,
Wow,
which was actually amazing because Mark squeezed off those 30 rounds out of that magazine, and the guy had laid down flat on the ground, and there was so many bullet holes in that wall. I don't know how he wasn't hit. It was pretty remarkable that Mark didn't even land a shot on him. But there's so many things when I look back on it now that we do differently, that we kind of, at that time, we didn't, never mind comms devices, we didn't even run with radios.
No.
I think the sergeant was the only one that had a radio. Kaiser was the only one that had a radio. We had no communications between each other or cover elements that we may need. We didn't, the sergeant had a radio if he needed to call an ambulance, and that was it.
We've had several, dark days in DPD from narcotics. Lawrence Cadena, he was shot and killed on a drug deal and gone bad. And then also Larry Bromley, we've spoke on the Claggett's talked about him, and Bob Owens. But did any of those cross your? I mean, y'all know the history of narcotics when y'all get there, and y'all know the fallen officers we've had that have been on those operations. Do those flash through y'all's head when y'all go to this?
I think, for me anyway, I think Jeremy Borchard was more on our mind because it was so recent before this. Then I wasn't in narcotics when we lost those senior officers, so those didn't necessarily come to my head. But I do remember thinking how soon this was after Jeremy's incident.
What did y'all learn? You said y'all didn't have comms. What else did you learn from this particular warrant? What could have been done better?
Well, we didn't have comms, which was a main thing. We didn't, from what I remember, most of us didn't even carry a cell phone on us at the time. The only reason I think about that is because I did have a cell phone on me, and after the warrant was over and secured, and Mark was probably loaded into an ambulance by this time, I had my cell phone, and my phone kept ringing in my pocket. I could feel it vibrating in my pocket. And finally, we were in the house debriefing, and I answered the phone, and it was my brother, who's an officer also. And he called me, and he said, "Hey, I heard narcotics was in a shooting. Are you okay?" And I said, "Yeah, it's not me. Call everybody in the family and let them know it wasn't me that was hurt." And I ended up lending my phone to everyone on the warrant team so that they could all call their families and let them all know that we're not the ones that was injured. It was Mark that was the hurt one. But that was something that, I mean, that's not necessarily a tactic, but it just seems things are so different now than they were then.
Yeah, you think about it, everybody's got a cell phone in their pocket now.
Yeah, we weren't even carrying them with us on the warrant,
Right.
It wasn't until just recently, though, that narcotics started using radios on every operator, correct? I mean, it's been in the last few years.
I think they all have comms now. We all started carrying a radio much more, much not long after this, but now they do have the actual comms, the listening and speaking devices.
Now, I want to talk about two things you said. You verbalized, remember your training. You told somebody, remember your training. Mm-hmm. And this is the first time I've heard your story, but that's not the first time I've heard that you said that. Like,
really?
Around the department, people are talking about what you did. And granted, this is almost 20 years ago at this point, right? I mean, this is a long time ago. But people remember the fact that you were cognizant and you were aware enough to say, hey, remember your training. As you're the one who was shot, you're speaking to a junior guy and you're telling him what's going on. I think that's huge, and you just barely brushed over it. So I wanted to commend you on that. That's a fantastic job.
Thank you.
The other thing is we keep talking about tunnel vision and how you didn't see things, and true enough, your vision starts to become obscured a little bit. You don't see as much, but your mind was still really working. I mean, you were thinking Jeremy Borchard, right? You just been shot, and you're thinking this guy was saved because there was an ambulance. Like, now I need to get myself fixed. There's a lot going on in your brain, and I think it's difficult because as police officers, we're not really self-aware, but there's a lot of credit that needs to be given for the things that you did in that situation because of where your mind was at, not necessarily what your vision was doing, but the tunnel vision. I think sometimes we think about that's the only thing you're focused on. Visually, maybe, but your brain function was spot on in this entire deal.
I appreciate that. I always wondered, going through all that training that we did,
Right.
would I react correctly? And I think I did. I mean, but I didn't really look at it that way. I didn't know that anybody knew that.
No, that story's out there.
Huh. Well, we're okay. Are you going to hold a football up and ask me to kick it now?
It's coming.
Do you think your rage helped you push through your pain? And do you think your rage kind of helped you stay focused and in that fight?
I think so, yeah. I mean, it was something that I've never felt since or before. It kept me in the fight,
So
definitely.
Was there even an ambulance staged at all prior to this?
No,
No.
we didn't do any of that stuff unless we just don't stage ambulances. But no, they. And then I remember hearing them call for 2 more ambulances on the radio, and thinking, well, I hope not another officer is hurt, but good. I thought they were calling for an ambulance for the suspect. I mean, I'm sorry that I felt that way, but that's what I felt.
Yeah.
And but yeah, so Filthy comes up with the warrant bag, and I don't know if he cut my pant leg or pulled my pant leg up, but he started very matter-of-factly telling me, you're bleeding pretty good, but it's a through-and-through wound. You're going to be fine. Quit your crying. He didn't say that, but he
Suck it up.
But if you remember him, he's just like, you're gonna be fine. I'm gonna help you. And I remember him yelling. He kept yelling at somebody to hold the light on my leg. It was like, because flashbangs were going off inside the house.
Yeah.
And there was some officer, I wish I knew who it was. He said, that guy, it was like trying to fix the engine with your son, when he's holding the light, keeps on getting distracted. And he was telling me that later on. But yeah, so it didn't take very long for the ambulance to get there.
This was it was a friendly fire
Yes.
incident,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Didn't find that out until probably 3 days after.
When Gretchen, she asked you about the rage, do you remember what was the rage directed at in your mind? If you can remember, like when you just the pain, you knew you got hit. Did you think the suspect hit you?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, because in my mind, still in my memory, the 3rd round put my leg out from under me. I mean,
We all thought the suspect was the one
Yeah.
that had shot Mark.
the offense report says that. So of course it's been supplemented probably, but
Just through later on the investigation, it was determined that
yeah. So I didn't find out until about 3 or 4 days after I got home from the hospital. But yeah, they my partner, I think that night, told them he realized that he had shot me in the leg. So
I think he told the supervisor that night, and Jeff Kaiser kind of, I think the way it was presented to him was he wasn't sure. He thought maybe that he had shot you in the back of the leg, but he told Jeff that that he thought it might have been his round, that he squeezed a round off before he was on target, obviously, and put one in the back of your leg.
And I think that just because of where the shot is, that he was moving to triangulate. There were 2 people that were hit that weren't involved in the gunfight. Just people that were there at the trap house.
Between you and the suspect.
They were between us. They were in the crossfire. And I think at one point my partner may have seen a muzzle blast come from around one of those people's hands. So he was in the gunfight, but like you said, he squeezed off a round before he was on target. So
there's been a lot. I mean, we've lost officers from friendly fire and actually in that division. In friendly fire, it happens more often than you would think, especially in the military. There's a lot of in combat. There's a lot of soldiers that were killed by friendly fire. Right. So I want to get into your physical recovery and then also the mental recovery.
Okay.
On this. So when you get transported, you go to the hospital and you get released. Tell us about that.
Well, when I got out of the hospital, the guys came. A bunch of them came to the hospital with the raid van. So when I was released from the hospital, the guys came in the van, the raid van, and asked my wife if they could take me home. Because I didn't get to go home 5 days earlier, however it was. Of course, yeah, she said no problem, and so we go out there. I'm on crutches. I have a rod and I think 5 screws in my leg still to this day. A titanium rod. The bullet shattered my shin bone, and they didn't set the bone. They just put the rod in there and let it grow back. So it's a pretty thick shin bone now.
Bionic leg.
Yep. Yeah, bionic leg. I don't go off at the airport though. But anyhow, I got downstairs, and it's a big giant van, and I was like, I can't step up into this van. I can't put weight on this leg, and I can't. What am I going to do? Well, Jerry Wante picked me up and put me in the van like I was a little kid, and I weighed at the time. I probably was 230, and I was like, oh, thanks, Jerry.
Jerry's strong.
Yeah, he's pretty strong. And
Jerry's got a special strength to him.
Yeah, just like he don't even know he's strong. He's strong. But so yeah, they took me home. They got me in. My Yvonne was there. I don't remember if the kids were there when I was getting home. They probably were in school. They all had come to the hospital that night, but so she had me all set up, leg propped up on the couch, and then those guys, they said their goodbyes and they left, and it was just silence, and I don't even remember. I mean, I remember at the time the Gulf War was pretty intense in Iraq, so I don't know why I even did this, but I was talking to the National Guard about joining the military again. And, it was a unit out of Wiley. And I was trying to get them they wanted to make me an E4, like a specialist. And like I was a corporal when I got out. So I was like, I can't have a mortgage and kids, and I have a degree now. Can you maybe do a little
way
something?
Smarter than you guys now.
Yeah, I'm better than you people. No. So I was talking to them about going, and one of the things that really deterred me is it was my daughter's senior year, and they said, it's guaranteed if you enlist, we are going to Iraq in, summer or whatever. But I was still talking to him about it, and I had applied for backgrounds, if you remember me saying. So where was I getting at? Oh, I was sitting there on the couch, and I was thinking, I said to Yvonne, I said, I don't think I ever want to get in another firefight ever again in my life. So the Army can just go pound sand,
Right.
That's when I made the decision there early on after I got home. I'm not pursuing this military thing. That was stupid. I was almost 40 years old. No, I decided not to do that. But yeah, then I don't remember if we even talked, if she and I talked about anything or not. I don't remember if I talked about it or said anything about it. I know there were people calling me and really puffing my chest up, telling me, man, that was, Steve Sterling was our training sergeant, and he told me at the hospital, you did the most excellent thing, because they started teaching us a couple of years before that you can fire through sheetrock at people. If you know where they are and you know your target, then he said that was you did everything you were supposed to. I think he showed me a picture, like a Polaroid of the room. Everybody's in there snapping Polaroids. And, Ben telling me all that, the coolest thing in the world, ever.
It was.
Ever. It was like a movie, puffing my chest all up, So I was pretty, I was kind of freaked out about everything that happened, but I was pretty happy with I made it home. There was a point in the front yard of that house where I questioned that. But, I thought a lot about wife and kids and, all that kind of stuff. And, but then the rage kind of came back a little bit, and it's, no, it ain't going to happen. We're going to, and then Filthy telling me that, so yeah. And we were about to have our 20th anniversary 3 weeks later, October the 18th. So we just kind of started looking forward to that.
What about your physical recovery? Did you go to therapy for anything and physical therapy to learn to do anything different? Was the wound that bad?
No, there's no joints involved. So I think I went to I did go to some therapy, physical therapy, just later on to make me put weight on my leg. The doctor that fixed my leg was actually the same doctor that rebuilt Fred Catani's legs when he was hit on the motorcycle. One of the best orthopedic trauma surgeons I just lucked out that he was on duty. He was on call. But he told me, you can put weight on that leg. There's a rod there. It's holding you. That's your new bone. That wasn't happening for me, though.
So what about the mental aspect there? Did you seek out did you think you needed to talk to anybody? Did you want to do that?
I didn't really think so. I mean, I was kind of high on the whole thing at the time.
Right.
Doc Somodavia, love him to death, but he called me. I was sitting outside on my patio smoking a cigarette, and he called me up and said, I hear, understand you were in a shooting. Yes. Are you sleeping? No, not really. Are you having nightmares? A couple, flashback. Yeah. Well, that's all normal. It'll fade, and call me if you need me. That was it. So that was pretty much all I got from that. And it's not. I'm not trying to fault anybody on that.
Which no, you're not faulting anybody, but that's what this department's trying to get away from. The check off the box, make the phone call, because Lance Crawford in his episode he said something really quite similar of both of his shootings. Call Dr. Al. You sleeping good? Of course, he didn't tell Doc that he was actually not. He said, "Yeah, I'm sleeping good." And he really wasn't. And when we get a call from back then from like a professional, and Canetti had the same. He had the same kind of experience after 7/7. It was a check off the box. It was something you just had to do. It was like in your shooting, y'all. I saw y'all's photos of standing in front of PES and all your gear, taking the photos. That was just a part of the process you wanted to get through so you could recover. Do you feel that you actually took the mental health recovery serious?
Not really. I didn't think it was going to affect me.
Mm-hmm.
I was actually fascinated by the flashbacks, because it's weird. Your mind can do some things. So it was fascinating to me that my mind could put me back in the moment like that. Just crazy.
Do you still have flashbacks?
No, not really.
Mm-hmm.
I about 2 years ago, just randomly, I think I had a couple of my grandkids in the car with me coming back from the park or something. I was pulling in my neighborhood, and for some reason that shooting came to mind, and all of a sudden I was just jolted, to the point where when I walked in the house, Yvonne said, "What's the matter with you? What happened at the?" And I said, "Nothing." And she's persistent, so I ended up telling her, I don't know why, but I just had a flashback from 2006, and she said, you need to go maybe talk to somebody about that, and so I have since,
Do you feel like that helped?
Oh yeah,
And
yeah, just working through it. I mean, I'm sorry.
No, if you could go back and do it over again, what would you want to do differently as far as your mental health there?
I would at the time I don't think that we all 100% trusted psych services, and I don't think I was aware of the ATO or the counselors, if they were even. I don't think they were doing it then. I don't think I was aware of it. So if I had to do it over again, especially after they called me and told me that I was shot by my partner, because that changed the whole dynamic of the whole thing.
Oh, for sure.
That was like the football coming out from under, that was Charlie Brown's back. Because then it becomes kind of a joke, really, in my experience. Like I was telling a group the other day when I was going through a class, I had to do a presentation, and I was talking about this, and I was saying, it was not the other day, it was months ago, but I had to do a presentation, and I'm going through, and everybody's telling me all these great things about this incident and what's gone on, and now as the years go by, not a whole lot of people know that it was a quote unquote friendly fire incident. They see the award on my chest, and they ask me about it, and inevitably there's somebody there that I'll tell this whole story, and they'll go, "Wow," and then they'll go, "Yeah, but tell them who shot you."
Yeah.
I just you just took all you're not going to take it away from me, because I know what I did. I survived, and but yeah, after that, when I found that out, Steve LeWillier called me, and he didn't want to come out and say it, so he said, "Hey, you were shot with a 9mm," and I was like, "Okay," and the suspect had a .38 revolver, and I was like, "Okay," and still didn't. He said, "Well, either you or your partner shot you," and we hang up the phone. We were at Hooters. My wife, Yvonne, got me out of the house, took me to Hooters to get some wings, and I was like, "Come on, let's go home." And it was devastating. Honestly, it was devastating but I remember getting mad, and I called him back, and I said, "I'm right-handed, carrying a long gun. How am I going to shoot myself?" He goes, "I'm trying to tell you, your partner shot you." Just finally, he just came out and said it. So that was when I should have actually gone and reached out to somebody.
One thing I've always wondered, all the times we've talked about this, have you ever talked with your partner about this happening, and have you ever, kind of forgiven him for it?
Yeah, there wasn't any. I never had any animosity against him. He didn't do it on purpose. But he got a similar phone call the same day I did. He called me and told me that if there was any way I could ever find it in my heart to forgive him, then he would appreciate it. And I told him, it's already done. I'm not gonna. I don't hate him. He didn't do it on purpose. He was inexperienced, and that happens more than people know, that officers squeeze off rounds as they're walking them. He was in the gunfight. He just fired a little bit too early,
Right.
And so, yeah, and we did have an opportunity at one time. Both of us ended up in personnel through a comedy of event errors. And we ended up having to go take a car to the garage together one time. So he asked me how I was doing and that kind of thing, and I said, I'm fine. I saw him every day. He was in recruiting. I was in backgrounds. So, yeah, I don't have any why? I mean, why carry that? You know.
I have a question for you.
Huh?
So let's hope that nothing like this ever happens again in this department where there's that friendly fire incident. But should there be, what's some advice you could give to going back to work and seeing it's a coworker that you're in a unit together and you guys drink together, eat together, know each other's families? What's some advice you could give about getting back into things? And then also, my other question is too, was that kind of a shocking way to get that news, that kind of that riddle to see if you were catching on, or would you just rather he just told you straight up?
Well, I'll answer the first one first. I would have rather just been told straight up, you know, because I remember saying, "Are you sure? You know, are you sure?" And he's like, "Look, we dug a slug out of the carpet. It's got your DNA on it. You know, it came from his gun. You know, that's yes, I'm sure. You know, so I would have rather just been told that." And then the other thing is advice for just people going back to work in general. It's going to be weird. So while I was out injured, I interviewed for backgrounds. So I was transferred. I remember, if I remember correctly, my oldest son drove me down to headquarters, and you know I hobbled into personnel, did the interview. Of course, they felt sorry for me because I was all messed up, and gave me the job. But so they transferred me like while I was out. So I was out from September to January, and so that was a little weird coming to a new spot, not getting to go back to narcotics. Well, by my own choice, I could still be in narcotics if I wanted to, but. Yeah, it was just weird. It was strange coming back, and everybody's kind of looking, you know. And I didn't know that I couldn't wear a uniform on light duty. So, first day back, I didn't have any magazines in my. Did I have a pistol? I don't know if I did or not, but I was wearing my uniform, and the first thing, this just popped into my head. One of the sergeants said hello to me, and I said hi back, and the first thing he said was, "Where's your magazines?" And I was like, "They're in evidence somewhere. I don't know." And, well, you need to take care of that. You know, just like, and by the way, you're on light duty? Yeah, you're not allowed to wear a uniform. And I'm like, welcome back to work. You know. I'm like, okay, I didn't know that, but I'm not going home to change. So, you know, wasn't going to do anything that day anyway, learning stuff. But yeah, it's going to be weird. Just take it all in, and you know, you kind of got to roll with it. I don't get mad at people. I've been joked. I've heard every joke there is about this deal, and I don't get mad at people for it because they don't know but it's almost like oh, you're in this really cool incident or whatever, you know. Oh, but it was friendly fire. Oh, well, then there, you know, doesn't even count. And it does count. So if this ever happens to anybody else where it's a friendly fire incident, it counts. I mean, it's just as traumatic. It's maybe even more traumatic, and you know it counts. So
well, it sounds like you're really emotionally mature to get past all that and to forgive him just right off the bat. I think that speaks to your character and who you are as a person. And for the people who want to invalidate your experience, I say fuck them all the way to hell. Because what you did, you kept going and continued in that fight, and then stayed in it even after being shot. And then you took that rage and you pointed at someone else, and you talked to somebody who was more junior than you through it all. Like, you commandeered a bunch of situations. So
yeah, I know I've known you for a long time, Major, and you're very you don't get angry. You're very even keel, and just hearing your response to this and the jokes. Yeah, I've heard the jokes too, and I think it's shitty. I'll be honest. And you know, Bob Owens talked about that, about, you know, cops kind of, you know, we use humor to cope with stuff, and
we shit on each other pretty good.
We do, but sometimes we do, and I'm sure I've been guilty of it too, to take it too far, where we don't, you know, we all can see, they can laugh it off, but then go home and it affects people. I think we should really do a better job of taking that into account.
Well, I just remember this one. We were leaving for lunch, and personnel coming out that door under by the freight elevator, and my partner was walking out behind me. And I always, when I open a door, I turn around and look and see if there's anybody coming. It's just a habit, so I hold the door for him. And he even said, I was holding the door. He's like, "Why are you looking back?" like, shut up. but yeah.
Well, all these different experiences have molded you into who you are today, and even as a leader, and you've promoted. You're now a major, right? And you're a senior corporal whenever this incident happened, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So you had in your bio, you're talking about you're affected. You wrote an article for the DPA, the Shield. That's our newsletter.
I did.
Right? And I told you, I mean, it's a fantastic letter, right? In an article. And I want you to kind of talk about what motivated you to write that, right? What it means to you. And then I want you to read the article to the listener.
Yeah, that's going to be fun. So I was always, when we do the police memorial, every year in May during the police week, they have we do this deal where we have saluters. Officers volunteer, and they march up there by the police memorial, and every time a name's called out, somebody salutes. It goes all down the line. They're wearing white gloves and the white rope around their I don't know what that's called. It's a French protege in the Marine Corps, but it's green. But it's a white thing, the rope thing. And I'd been to that before, and it was coming up again. It was starting to come up again, and I was in personnel, so we were kind of helping out with the whole logistics of it. And I just got to thinking about, it's amazing when they call these names out for officers who were killed in the 30s. There were family members there that stand up, and so it just got me thinking how close I really came to being one of those names. That time, I mean, just in particular, and the time, the other time up at Northeast, and it just got me thinking. There was a lot of stuff starting, all that rumbling about. I don't remember what year I wrote this. I think it was probably 3, maybe 4 years after the shooting. It just got me to thinking. There was a lot of rumbling about, police reform and all that kind of thing already at that time, and it just got me thinking. I just wonder what's going through officers' minds when they're going through these incidents. So, that's why it just came to my mind. And
Okay, no, it's a fantastic article, and Wolverton, you remember it from the Shield?
I've got a weird habit of reading from cover to cover. The day it comes in, I basically walk in from the mailbox reading the Shield, and I remember reading the article.
Well, for the listener, would you mind reading this?
I'll try. I'm already starting to get verklempt.
Yeah. Well, Gretchen put a tissue box right there for you. So, and hey, and I will say that whatever you cannot read, Todd will take it over, I think. Or we will pick it up.
We'll
and finish
follow
it.
along.
Yeah.
It's okay. For the fallen officers. I stood at attention and I listened to all of your names being called. I grieved for each of you. I barely knew any of you, but as I hear your name, I want you back. I want to scream each name so I can hear it echo through the city. I listen to each name and I feel guilty. My name could have been added to the roll. We say there, but for the grace of God go I, but I know that truly, but for his grace, they would be reading my name. I wonder as I stand there, when the time came, did you care about the politics? Were you thinking of all the times you've been spat upon, both literally and figuratively? Or were you thinking of your wife and kids, your fiance, your mother. I see them in the crowd standing when your name is called, standing up for you for 20 plus years. Always faithful to you, never forgetting your sacrifice. You were like me. You were my brother, my sister. We stand on that thin blue line and hold it every day. Without us, there would be no order. We know that, but do they even realize what this job takes from us? Do they know there are some who would do this job for free? Do they realize some do it for next to nothing? This job, this profession is like no other. Accountants, doctors, lawyers, managers, they're not asked to lay down their lives every day. We have all heard a calling and answered it. We take an oath and we hold that oath sacred. We uphold the oath to a T. My fallen brothers and sisters have upheld the oath at the risk and sacrifice of their very lives. I want to scream all of your names so they don't forget. I want to make them listen. Our lives go on. You wanted it that way. We all want it that way. But we will come together, all of us, and we will light candles. We will read your names out loud. We will salute you and play taps. We will render a 21 gun salute. And we will answer the calls when they come. We pray no one ever again joins your ranks, but we know someone will. But we will go still without reservation because we are the peacemakers. We know that if our time comes, it won't be for nothing. We will never, ever forget.
Beautiful. You got through it.
I can't believe I did that whole thing.
I couldn't have done it. No, it's a great article, and I wanted the listener to hear that.
I'll just grab one of these.
Yeah, grab a tissue there. Your
Allergies.
allergies picked up here
Yeah,
all of a sudden.
pollen in this room.
Yeah. I heard ragweed. Yeah,
It didn't help that Joe was running around the room flicking flowers the whole time.
Yeah. Yes, ragweed blew in, I think. No, Mark, that was beautiful. I want everybody to hear that, and powerful.
The major rank is an appointed rank, right? It's not one that
Yes.
you test for. It's not one that you get promoted to because you outscored other people. But
Correct.
it's more of one. I guess it's a little more personal. I haven't done it myself yet, so I can't really speak too much on it. But what did you think when you got the notification that you were selected to be a major on this department?
I literally started shaking. I did. I didn't think. I've been a lieutenant for 6 years, and in the past couple of chiefs sent out, email, if you want to be considered, send a resume.
Right.
Chief Garcia didn't do that. I think he put his trust. I'm not speaking for him at all, but I think he put his trust in his executive assistants to look at lieutenants around the department, their body of work. I'd been in legal for the last 3 years. Joe and I worked in legal together.
You had to supervise me.
Yeah. So that right there was, that was a feather in my hat. Right?
That was a critical incident in itself.
Yeah. I need to talk to the doc about that. But I started, at the time I was getting pretty tenured as a lieutenant, and I had never been in patrol. So my decision, I talked to Yvonne about it, and I said, if I don't get promoted to major this year, I'm not going to get promoted. I'm getting kind of long in the tooth, so they say. And I was fine with it, but I was going to go to the chiefs, and I was going to ask for a patrol watch. Done my time, 3 years on deep nights at the jail, 3 years in legal, taking care of all that. That's a lot of moving parts. That unit is a stressful place. And then I got the call from Chief Anderson, and I literally started shaking. I was trembling. My voice was trembling when I was talking because it was exciting for me. I've always been, like I said, I skipped one promotion test 25 years ago, and I'll never do it again. And so I'm just driven that way. Now, I thoroughly enjoy it. He called me and told me I was getting the gang unit and the fugitive unit, and new division they called Tactical Investigations Division. I loved it and spent 10 months there, and then they did a little shuffle. Now I'm over the North Central Division, Patrol Division, finally back in patrol, and that was kind of my goal when I was a deputy. I wanted to be a patrol sergeant. That's all. That was my goal in life. I was done.
Well, you and I went to the CPI school,
Yes.
probably the longest 6 weeks of my career.
Yeah. They weren't allowing us to wear guns out after a while because they were afraid we were
Yeah,
doing something.
there was a definite watch put in place over that group. But one of the things we discussed in that was the leadership philosophy, and I remember reading a book about it. And while I was in the class, I kind of thought, man, this is kind of a joke, But I went back and actually read the book after the class again, and I developed my own leadership philosophy on that, because I think if you're not aware of how you're doing things, you're just going to kind of walk through it and not really have a purpose to it. What's your leadership philosophy?
Yeah, so I have to confess that I didn't read the book. I just kind of BS my way through the paper. Well, I've been around a lot of good and really bad leaders. So I just take a little something from all those experiences. I had a sergeant in San Antonio who couldn't write you up because he couldn't write. And I mean, that's true. I'm not going to say his name, but he's dead now. Rest in peace, Sarge. But my leadership philosophy is that I don't want to ever have to ask anybody to do anything that I'm not willing to do myself or haven't already done. But sometimes you have to be. You can't tell people that. You can't. It doesn't help when you're telling somebody to do something that's a shit job. You can't say, "Hey, look, I've done this 3 times." They don't care. But you have to just be firm with them. And the worst thing I have to do now as a major is recommend discipline, because I don't like to do that. I like to sit people down and go, "Hey, man, you messed this up. So first time is we're good, but don't let it happen again." That's the way I like to do things. Comes a point in time though when you have to, you got to lay down the law. You got to lay down the hammer on people, and they need it. And some of them thank you for it later. Is what I think. And so that's just. I mean, I don't really have a set thing that I say when somebody asks me that, but I treat people fairly. I don't play favorites. I try not to. It's hard not to. When you have somebody that's doing a real good job for you, you want to reward them. But you can't reward them outside the boundaries of what the process is. You have to.
We can't give financial bonuses because you did a great job.
Yeah, you're not going to get a check from me at Christmas time. But
the praise from your commanders though often is more than the financial would be anyway.
Yeah, like I'll give you an example. So when I went to North Central, it was in January, so you're kind of up against a small set of stats because it's January. But February, March come rolling around, and our violent crime was way up. And everybody says, people are going to be listening going, no, not at North Central. But it's the percentage, it's a volume. If you catch 3 extra murders, you're up 300%, or you could be. So we started to do this ops plan in addition to the violent crime reduction plan that we're doing now, which is absolutely 100% working in my opinion. So we started to do some extra stuff, and I started sharing those stats with a division-wide email and thanking my officers for what they were doing. And I had one come up to me not too long after I sent one of those emails out, and he didn't say anything. This guy's got 35 years on the department, He didn't say anything else except thank you. And I was just looked at him funny, and I was like, for that email? He said, yes. He said, you don't understand how much that means to these young kids that are running around out here thinking that nobody cares. So that's just what I do. I send emails out, and I'll share the percentages, and hey, man, we took a hit on this, or we need to work. Just I'm in it. They hear me on the radio, not a lot, but I get out. I try to get out and
Go ahead, Joe.
Now I'll say working for you. The thing that I took away most is how genuine you are and just likability. But you have to be a boss too, and I always respect. And I butt heads with bosses over the years, but I always respect them, and I will, even after you're long gone from this job, I will always probably still call you major or chief, whatever you leave. That's just how I am. But your likability and you being a genuine person, I never looked at you as a person that made decisions because you wanted to get a leg up. And we have plenty of that in this profession with people. They command a certain way because they want more, and I never got that from you.
I appreciate that, because I consciously do that. I mean, I don't want anybody to think that I'm gonna, throw you under the bus just to better myself. I'm just not wired that way.
No, I think a lot of people put you down as a yes man for sure. I mean, you've always been a company guy.
Yeah.
Never gone against the grain.
Yeah.
I've never worked for Mark, but I've obviously worked with him. And one of the things I really appreciate about Mark is that Mark has never treated me any differently. As he went up in ranks, he's always been you're probably one of the most respectful people I've ever met. You respect the people you work with and the people that work for you. And I appreciate that.
Oh, thank you. That means a lot. Yeah, I mean, I've had to tell the one of our coworkers in legal that was having all the problems. They'll come to your head pretty. But I had to tell him, he was in my office talking to me about something, and I was having to give him the news that he couldn't wear his uniform anymore because he was sick. And I won't say his name, but this is Mark and
yes,
him talking, not lieutenant and senior corporal. Right now, that's first and foremost. Known the guy ever since I was a rookie in quotes,
yeah,
at Northeast. But that's the way I am. I mean, I'm just if I have to be a major, I'll be a major, and I hope people have enough respect for me to know that I don't. It's not personal when that has to be done. It's not personal. It's business.
We talk on this podcast quite a bit about the incidents that are pretty major, and you've had your fair share of major incidents, but it's not just the cool stories and the bad situations that really define who you are as a person. But do you think that as a whole, all of those incidents help mold you as who you are now?
Oh yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I had to deal big tough Marine deputy out in the middle of nowhere one night when I was down in San Antonio, and this helped. I sort of cut my teeth, if you will, down there when I got here. I already had 10 years on department, so I had this guy pulled over for DWI in the middle of nowhere with his wife in the car, and I got him out. He was very cooperative, field sobriety test, everything. Yeah, he's going to blow probably a 12 in my mind. And I said, well, I'm going to place you under arrest. And he said, no, I'm not going to jail. I mean, we're out there in the middle of nowhere. So we're starting to go back and forth. I'm starting to tell him, man, I said, you're going to jail. I'm deputy sheriff, He said, sir, I'm not going back to jail. I'm not going to jail. So I'm call for backup, in that cover. And he's 20 minutes away, says it on the radio. And so we're going back and forth, and he's not going. I can tell. I mean, Rickerman called it spidey sense. Yeah. Something's fixing to go down here. So we're just kind of standing there staring at each other, and this guy just out of the blue just says, "Hey, do you know Raul Fernandez?" I said, "Raul Fernandez? Yeah, I went to the academy with him." "Well, that's my brother-in-law." So I was like, ding, So I said, "Really?" He said, "Yeah." I said, "Okay. Has your wife been drinking?" "No." "Go stand over there." He did. He was complied with everything I said. He just said he was not going to jail. And I've never backed down from anything. I never told anybody about this, by the way. Like, very few people know this.
Don't worry, nobody listens.
Yeah. And I gave him his wife a quick little HGN. She hadn't been drinking at all. And just the fact that I made him ride home with his wife, because he's big macho, he was a macho dude, he's pretty stout, was probably punishment enough for him, because that's why he was driving in the first place. And that taught me a lot later on here in my career, that it's not always worth it. I'm going home one way or the other. So, I don't know. Everybody's out there punching the steering wheel right now going, "You're the biggest wimp in the world." But
no, I think it demonstrates fairness, Mark.
Yeah.
I mean, you've policed in fairness, and you've commanded in fairness, and that's who you are. And I appreciate you. I appreciate being, you doing this, coming on here and telling your story. And I want to ask one final question. Okay, you ready?
Yeah.
Were you look nervous?
Yeah.
What would you tell a young rookie that is the best way to, what can they do to get through this, survive 30 plus years in this profession?
Man,
in today's climate, Mark, it was like it when you started in Bexar County.
Don't give up. I mean, there's going to be times when you're not ever going to go through a 30 plus year career without getting your ass whooped, and both physically and career wise. I mean, you're going to have ups and downs. You're going to fail tests. You're going to fail PT tests. I know, Lord knows, I've failed enough of them, and you just have to keep going. I mean, what I was going to say before when we started was, if I would have stayed in college, none of this stuff would have ever happened to me. I'm thankful. Thank God for the quote-unquote poor decisions I made when I was 19, because none of this would be happening right now. I wouldn't have my life any other way.
I think that's a perfect way to wrap it up. I think that you may not believe it, but I think that you did kick the football, and Lucy did not yank it away in your life and your career.
I realize that now.
Thanks for coming on, man. I appreciate your friendship. I'm honored to say that that you're my friend.
Thank you. Thank all of you. It's an honor.